My name is Maria Brockhaus, and I'm Professor for International Forest Policy at the University of Helsinki, which I am since about 6 months or so. Before, I worked for 10 years at the Center for International Forestry Research based in Indonesia, and was there working mainly on issues of forest role in mitigation and adaptation. Mainly to do with the first D. So if you think REDD+, R-E-D-D, and the plus, I'm very interested in action, policies, measures that would help to tackle the problem of deforestation. And that is something that makes me really driven in this whole debate. Thinking that then forests really can have a major potential to support climate change action by simply halting deforestation. And the simply is, of course, ironic. By halting deforestation, that is something I think everybody can subscribe to. So working to tackle deforestation to avoid emissions or reduce emissions from deforestation. I think very early on, REDD+ was linked also to forest governance, because I think if you look at the literature on what drives deforestation, weak forest governance is a major issue. My point here is always that it's not only weak forest governance, also what to heck is weak here in this context, but it's really much more about who are the drivers of deforestation, who benefits from deforestation, from business as usual of deforestation that we see in many forest-rich tropical countries, and what kind of governance then can really respond to that problem of deforestation and tackle the drivers. What I see in most of the countries, and that's a problem for REDD+ as well, often you see the debate very quickly shifting when it comes about real policy action and an actual change in governance, what we call transformational change, for example. Then you see that very quickly actors start to talk about the shifting cultivator, about the smallholder. What they do forget with that is the actual political economy of deforestation. And with that, I mean the alliance and the policy coalitions that we find in our research very much where we take a political economy lens to understand the whole problem, that we see there that often those that are involved in governance are the ones that are then collaborating, being in a coalition basically with actors, and most of them, of course, private sector that large-scale industrial drivers of deforestation collaborate together with government, and in that interfere in governance of forests to then actually conduct continuing business as usual of deforestation. The problem is to break this political economy of deforestation. And I'm making all this fuss about governance here because this is not only governance within those tropical forest-rich countries that are far away. I'm also talking here about global governance and national governance elsewhere and elsewhere in the Nordic countries, because again, the point is, why do you have what drives deforestation? And to a large extent, these are global trade and investment patterns. So, for example, the Norwegians, in their own governance, stumbled over action where they were, on the one hand, in this international United Nations Climate Change Convention arena, very much supporting action against deforestation, and that was through and is through support of REDD+. On the other hand, they were investing with their own national pension fund in deforestation driving activities. And these kind of contradiction means you have to think governance here a little bit bigger than just somewhere remotely in Indonesia, Brazil, DRC, Congo, Cameroon, but you have to think also about global governance and governance at home, where you have to revise, I think, investment decisions and also analyze your own trade patterns. REDD+ is a baby that is now 10 years old and should be capable of walking and delivering. And this baby REDD is so far showing some results from the research we are doing in CFOR's Global Comparative Study. What we see is We see some mixed results in terms of non-carbon outcomes, such as tenure security. Something also that was discussed in the workshop here very much is, okay, there are some positive messages one can see in some of the country cases where there is induced by REDD+, some more discussions about tenure, where there are even court cases that are now won because there's international attention as well and international awareness. However, and one of the other major contributions I see with REDD+ is something related to forest monitoring capacities and the capacities to know what is happening with the forest in general. Not only, as it was before, on the hand of the government, but with in parallel taking place a technical revolution of remote sensing, where you can sit a bit more safer, perhaps not in Kalimantan in the forest, but perhaps in Jakarta in your green civil society in a safer space than being straight in the forest, and you can still see, document and report about deforestation at a larger scale. Something that was very risky and is still till today very risky, I think, for many civil society organizations working there. So for me, major positive contribution is actually on the side of improved capacities for monitoring. And with that, also what I see there, and that links back to forest governance, I think, where you have a more and more empowered civil society because they have access to information to go back and to hold state and private sector accountable to the promises and the rhetoric that we hear a lot in all these different countries, where you have governments, where you have private sector actors saying, yes, we are supporting zero deforestation. And they also sign those kind of commitments. But in terms of measurable success, there's very little. And that brings me to the third part. I was talking now a little bit about non-carbon outcomes and REDD+ contribution there. Yes, I think there is something visible. In terms of carbon, actual avoided emissions, tackled deforestation, unfortunately, our research shows that there are very mixed results. So REDD+ has not yet delivered at that front. So then some might say, okay, we are happy because at least we have some co-benefits, but I think REDD+ will be measured and its success will be measured at the end of the day at its ability to deliver towards actually reduced deforestation, forest degradation. So perhaps after 10 years one cannot expect much, but I think countries, and I mean when I say countries, not only REDD+ countries in the tropics, I mean countries that are engaged, such as Norway, such as the UK, many other countries that are Germany, financing REDD+ activities all over the world. They also have to make their contribution and really break this trade and investment patterns that we see that actually drive deforestation elsewhere. So I'm still very positive about REDD+ because I think there is something, but I wish this is something would become clearer and also more measurable in terms of actually avoided deforestation. What I see these days happening a bit is that there is a race to the bottom at the international level. Everybody is waiting for each other. So I don't move if you don't move. Then we have countries, as we all know, such as the US, completely moving out, which of course now in my role as a researcher, I'm doing a workshop in Myanmar. The first question I get is, thanks, Maria, for talking about REDD+, but why should we do action for climate change if America is out? So what do you say? And again, I think it's important to think back and maybe get out of this abbreviation REDD+ and really think again about avoiding deforestation, forest degradation, which is a much bigger objective. But it has with climate change, I think, an incredibly important policy arena where it really can demonstrate its potential to make a contribution. But more would be desirable, measurable outcomes.